So I'm going to introduce why we are here today. So I will first with why absolutely French. So 12 years ago, I was living in India, in Chennai. I was like you, an expatriate partner for the sixth time. During these 3 years, there were two highlights. The first was at Akane, a Japanese expat voice. We were chatting on the sofa. I still remember a grey sofa. And she told me that she was checking off the days, day by day, with crosses on her calendar until the end of her expatriation. And for me, it was like, oh, because of the word, it was like a prison. So I was very shocked by this. The second is the story of Marie. Marie has 3 children, and she followed her husband for 15 years, leaving behind a high-up position and put her career on hold. Her husband left her before they returned to France, with a 15-year-old in her city. It was for this woman and for all expatriate spouses, men and women, that I decided to start Absolutely French 10 years ago. What is Absolutely French? So, Absolutely French is a French school, I think you know that already, created to integrate expatriates and expatriate schools. And it is above all the service I would have dreamed of having during my expatriations. To better understand the professional opportunities for expat spouses. To think about my career in the long term, not just 2 years, just the long term of the career. And to integrate more quickly, because when you arrive in a certain country, you don't speak the language, you don't understand the culture, and you need something to help you integrate quickly, because you will stay 2 or 3 years only in the country. As expat spouses, you need 3 essential things to integrate in your new country. The first one is to learn the language, because for me it's the first integration tool. To understand the culture, you need the language. And to speak to the people in the country, you need the language. To understand the culture of you need also to understand the culture of the country, of course. To understand your environment correctly, what you can do in your city. To feel safe and supported, I think it's also a very important point. To develop your network is why you are here today. To respond to the local working world. Based on these 6 needs, we have built our French courses, which combine practical lessons with the community. Our training is very comprehensive and are built around 3 things. I think most of you know the things because you are absolute. And the things are, maybe you will recognize you on the picture, Tina. So we have the store and learn. It's treasure hunts in Paris to discover the history of Paris, the places useful for your integration, like a bus, a tunnel, etc. All chosen to help you better understand your environment. Cook and learn, it's shopping in the market first, then cooking a seasonal French menu, and of course tasting together. Gastronomy and the art of the French table are a key part of French culture. Play and learn, it can take to focus on speaking, listening and interacting, because speaking with confidence, as soon as possible is essential when you arrive in a new country. These face-to-face courses in small group of 4 to 6 people are complemented by an e-learning platform which allows you to revise at home and work on your reading and writing skills. We offer meetings outside the classroom, set up buddies between expatriates, and all workshops in English like the ones you have today. Our clients are international companies that have understood the importance of a dual career in expatriation, such as L'Oréal, Air Liquide, Total Energies, etc. And now, why absolutely talented? 4 years ago, one of the spouses of expatriates, whom we were training at Absolutely French, came back from a job interview. We were speaking together, and I realized that she had not told the recruiter that she was an expatriate spouse. I asked her why, and she said that it's not positive to say so, but they will see her as someone who does nothing. So for me, it's really something that it's not possible. Expatriate partner doesn't do anything. They do a lot. I can't understand why she said that. And then I said to myself that this feeling she had was shared by so many people in today's society. And that is what's really important, to change that image. So it's why I started Absolutely Talented. And we have 4 specific goals. Promoting expat spouses to recruiters first. Making expat spouses understand their potential, because you have applicable profile. It's a strength. It's not. So you need to show it to the recruiters and other companies. Of course, promoting dual career expatriation and gender equality. And I think there is something important that I've seen with Brooklyn, is that when you go on LinkedIn, you can't choose when you are moving abroad. You can't choose. You can choose that you are in holidays or in moving, but you can't choose that you are an expat partner. And I want this to change, because for me, expat partner on your CV or on your LinkedIn is positive. So I would like to log in to LinkedIn to have this option open. I have a small secret to tell you today. I could have done this event with my amazing team today, because Absolutely Talented was a dream from the beginning, and then I realized this with all my team, so I want to thank you, Marc. So, thank you. Thank you. Melody, thank you. Niel, thank you. Pauline, thank you. Et bien sûr, il y a aussi mes formateurs, Olivier, thank you, Monica. And the rest of the team is coming soon. Thank you to our speakers. I'm really grateful to have you with me today, because I need to have people embrace the same goal, so it's very important to me. Thank you, Gill, thank you, Susanna, Kerstin, thank you, and Caroline, thank you to be there. Thank you all the expat partners to be here also. And thank you the team Choose Paris region. And thank you for the companies who trust and are here today to recruit. We need also your support to make things happen. And I'm going to hand with a quote that is perfect for expat partners and for both men and women. It's from Simone de Beauvoir, and only independent work can provide women and expat partners with genuine independence. Thank you. Hello, thank you, Susanna. Could you introduce yourself, please?
Of course, with pleasure. So, hi everybody. My name is Susanna Bloch. I'm an English national, and I've been based in Paris for the last 23 years. I arrived in the year 2000. And I work for Schneider Electric, which is an energy automation company.
Hello, my name is Kerstin, and I've lived here for quite some time as well, for around 15 years. I was born in Germany, and I'm just back for 4 years in Copenhagen. I'm still doing surgery currently, working on finalizing my PhD thesis in Copenhagen. And in the past, I've worked in consulting, communications, in international business more broadly. And so my life path or my career path is not very linear in that sense.
Hello, my name is Gill, originally from Northern Ireland, but I spent around 12 years of my career expatriated in mainly France, but also the US and Germany. I spent the vast majority of my career with Schneider in HR. I started a store company, but during that time with Schneider, we put in place a not-for-profit foundation with many other companies such as Shell, and this was to basically help partners during careers, during the assignment, who are not able to move because they cannot legally work in a country. And that's what we've been doing, is trying to approach governments, doing global advocacy to persuade them to relax work permit requirements for mobile partners.
Hello everybody, so my name is Vaquette, so I'm French, and I had 2 expats with my husband and my family, one in China in 2014 for 4 years, and one in the US from 2018 to 2020. So I am now the French director of Pernod Ricard for talent, in charge of recruitment, talent development, and also diversity and inclusion and employability. So I'm so happy to be here to help you in France because I also had the same experience as you, and I know it's not easy to find a job, and now as I have this responsibility in America, I am here to help, and my team will join also the career fair to meet you today.
Thank you, Caroline. Thank you, Kerstin. Why did you choose to research global mobilities and identities?
Yeah, so it's a big question, but as many of those who are here, it's also, I think, inspired by my personal experience of moving around and being abroad. And mobility as such, it requires to adapt, obviously, and to develop a sort of form of belonging that is not necessarily monolithic, that is multi-layered and that is dynamic, so which is getting adjusted over time and it's evolving. So and this complexity somehow is what I was most interested in, and so I look at individuals, microsociological level of mobilities and expatriation and migrations. It's very closely linked. And it's part of a bigger EU project where different colleagues from different disciplines have looked at the topic.
Thank you, Kerstin. Susanna, what does the term expat partner mean to you? Does their experience allow them to develop soft skills?
Great question. So let me tell you a couple of stories, individual stories about spouses and partners of Schneider Electric signings. So the first one, which I just thought was very illustrative and quite inspiring, was about a spouse partner who recently took a job in a retail store in the country that he had relocated to. And this was absolutely nothing to do with his background, which was more project management, sustainability topics. And really, he took the job because he wanted to integrate into that country. He wanted to spend time connecting with people and just understand a bit more about the local job market. The other story is about a spouse who relocated into France, and she pivoted her career. She'd been in customer care in a software company before coming to France in India. And she came and she decided to spend some time studying. And first of all, she did an MBA, and then she focused on a master's in HR because she discovered a passion for HR. And she followed up with an internship, which she actually did with Schneider. And she's just been offered a permanent contract in HR. So great, awesome stories, but what do they really tell us? I think what they tell us is that when you go to another country, that country's not really sort of expecting you to show up, right? And so you need to be able to think about what you can do, what you can offer, and how you can maybe pivot and do things that you just would never have considered in your home country. And that's what those two people did. I think they're probably thriving in those roles now and discovering a lot of different things. So what the key skills, to come back to your question on that, I think the first skill is to really reflect on is self-awareness, because you need to know yourself, to know what you could do and think about what you could do. I think adaptability, and Kerstin, you were talking about that as well, the capacity to adapt and pivot if you need to pivot, right? The other one that I would say is the networking skills. That's what we're all here today to do, right? Because you can't find something unless you start talking to people and get out there, right? And finally, something that I think we've all connected with over the last few years, which is resilience. You actually need to take a few knockbacks. You know, as I said, that country's not expecting you to show up, right? So you need to have quite a high level of resilience and just keep going.
Thank you. Thank you, Caroline. According to you, what are the soft skills of tomorrow?
I totally agree with what you just shared with us, really in terms of soft skills. And at Pernod Ricard, we look at 6 soft skills and leadership attributes. The first one is the capability to grow diversity. So this is really important at Pernod Ricard to have this capability, and how to do it is obviously with inclusive leadership. So this is so important. After, of course, we look also at the growth mindset and the capability also to be customer-oriented and to deliver through collaboration. So it's so important to be in this team spirit and this capability to work as a team, and also to be bold and agile. And so you have also these strengths because you are agile, because you are adaptable, and this is something we look at really. And the last one is open and authentic, and share your own story to explain your career path, and to regarding this self-awareness, which is clearly important, to be authentic on what you are able to do and what you can bring to the company.
Thank you, Caroline. Gill? In 2022, Pernod Foundation carried out an important survey. What were the key findings? Were there any which stood out to you?
So yes, Pernod Foundation carried out, in fact, a 2-part survey at the end of 21 and 2022. The first part of the survey was focused on HR and global mobility professionals. The second part of the survey was focused on mobile partners, and I think that's the part that would be of particular interest to obviously you in the room. So just to give you an idea of the survey, I'm just going to pick out some key highlights. So there were about 730 partners took part from 67 different nationalities, based in 103 host countries, and from 130 companies. So a very widespread, and obviously with with many interesting pieces of information and opinions. So we'll just pick out some key highlights from the survey. In our survey in 2008, so we've been doing surveys going back to 2008. At that time, 85% of the participants were women. In 2022, that number is still high, at 76%. So obviously the vast majority are women. But it's very interesting that we have 10% more men taking part. And what that means now is that obviously in couples there are an increasing number of women that are driving the move. And I'm quite sure that that number will continue to change. So that's an interesting statistic that has come out of it. Nearly 90% of partners have a bachelor's degree or higher. So a very, very skilled population. And in fact, 50% have a master's degree or higher. There are many PhDs in there as well. So this is a very big talent pool. To maintain their careers, 90% of partners were working in their home country. Less than 50% are working now in the Chinese country, but 85% of those wanted to work. So that means you've got a huge percentage of people that have the skills to work, want to work, but cannot work because they can't get the work permit. And then I just point out that 94% of these partners said that countries that allow partners to work are more attractive. So there are some very interesting facts there. We'll come back and we'll talk about a few other things in due course.
Thank you, Jill. So we see that talent married talent. I like to say that because I think you need to know that you are talent. Kerstin, how do international moves of couples affect the integration of those who follow their partner?
Yeah, so I could share some macro data on this from a recent article that a colleague of mine, Teresa Montero, has written, and she has looked at statistically representative data in Germany and looking at migrants in general who are highly qualified, because as an expatriate who lives in a country, you're also from a macro level part of this category, highly qualified migrant. And in this category, she finds that 70% of all so-called tide movers, those who follow, are women, and 30% are men. Further on, analyzing the employment activity over time, spending their time over several years in Germany, she finds that the economic integration of those tide movers, those who are not the lead mover, is lagging behind. So no economic integration means no professional activity, and therefore also social integration lagging behind. So that's a macro perspective that's quite important to take as well, let's say from the perspective of a city, of a country or a region, like the EU, for example. And I would say there's also this a diversity and inclusion perspective to it, because there's still the tradition of gendered role of what an expat partner does, and even if it's a man, what this person has to do when, for example, there's a family run, is to take care of the kids, to bring them to school, and these kind of things. So, as Anna said in the beginning, there's still work to do, also to work on the perception in regards to that. And I think there's a link also in organizations between global mobility and diversity and inclusion.
And I think it's also important for the country to understand that these followers could be very important to the country to integrate and give work also. Thank you, Kerstin. Susanna, as a former head of talent acquisition, would you say that expat partners are the talents of tomorrow?
Well, at Schneider, we believe that all our employees are talents, and I would say that spouses and partners of the sites are definitely a highly diverse talent pool with inherent, obviously, international scope and skills, right? So it's a very interesting talent pool. Now, the real question, I think, for us in the room is how do you translate into another country and another working environment?
Can you repeat the last sentence?
Sure. So the real question is understanding how you can translate into another country and thinking also about what makes it unique and what you can bring as unique skills. And part of that might be, your language skills or your knowledge of a different country. And I think that discussing with some of our spouses and partners, one of the key first steps that a lot of them who've been successful is actually also learning the local language and culture. And that's something that we support at Schneider for our spouses and partners, and obviously Mel, your company is involved in helping people understand that those language areas and the culture, and that can help you get insights and also reflect on what you could do. And sometimes it's okay to also say, look, at the moment I want to have a pause and I want to focus on my family. And I want to get to know the language, and I want to integrate and make my network, right? And as a second step, then I might want to consider something else. I might want to study, I might want to volunteer, I might even want to set up my own company because I can see an opportunity in that local market. But it's also about giving yourself the time to reflect on what makes you unique, understand the country, and see where you could bring that unique skill.
Yeah, thank you, Susanna. Caroline, sorry. At Pernod, what type of profile are you looking for? What types of skills? How important are soft skills in the profiles you receive?
At Pernod, we recruit based on competency and skills. So we look at 50% on the what and 50% on the how. So this is how our recruiter works with hiring manager in order to recruit. And we are looking for international talents. I am quite new at Pernod, and the company is so special because in the headquarters in Paris, it's really an international talent hub. I have never seen that before in France, frankly. And myself also, I am really thinking that my experience abroad was so important to join this company, and probably as a French citizen, I'm not sure I was able to work in this company before my expatriation. So we have 115 talents in the HQ who are foreigner, and we have 41 nationalities in total, and the average age is 38. So this is to give you an idea of the company, and so to answer your question, we are looking for talent who can contribute individually and as a team, as I said before. So you are more than welcome to apply and to see what jobs your competency and what you want to do.
Okay. You just told me before we had a small talk, and you told me that you have a colleague who works with you, and she doesn't speak any French at all.
No, exactly. So before coming today, I was asking her the question yesterday when we were at lunch, and I said, do you speak French? And she said, no. I arrived during COVID, and it was already difficult to arrive, etc. So I am now starting to learn French. So this is not a barrier in your company to not speak French. It's of course better, but not a barrier.
It's possible to join your team. We are French. Thank you, Caroline. Gill, what advice would you give to an expat partner who is looking for a job? What is the most important part of the application process?
So I would say that by far the most important advice that I would give to partners is to do your research before the move, pre-move. Come on, I'll explain a little bit more about that. We'll give you a few more facts that have come out of our survey to back this up. So that's 84% of the survey respondents said that it would be most helpful to know if they could work pre-move. So it's obviously extremely disappointing for the partner to only find out when they arrive in the country, and then probably nothing can be done about it during the time of their assignment. We know from the survey as well that not being able to work causes increased pressures on families. We know that sometimes it can result in split families where maybe the partner decides to go back to the home country with children, and there's a risk of the assignment failing. We saw that particularly during the COVID time where there was all sorts of stresses. 56% of partners said that not being able to work had impacted their mental health. 40% said that it had negatively impacted their willingness to stay in their current assignment. And 16% said that their partner had refused previous assignment because they, the partner, were not able to work. So there's some pretty compelling evidence there about the impact of partners not being able to work. And we also got a lot of anonymous comments within the survey about partners not being able to work. And it may be that there are very good reasons why they can't find a job before they actually arrive in the country. But if they cannot actually legally work, then that is a discussion. So that's the reason why I would say to you that for me, by far the most important thing is, do your research, do your homework before an assignment. If you want to work, find out how you do that.
Yeah, important point. Thank you. Kerstin, what added value did your personal international moves bring to the EU research project Global? Which skills do partners of mobile employees develop with living abroad?
Yes, so let's just depersonalize for a second first. Because the research project that has funded, partially funded by PhD, was funded by the European Union, and there were 15 researchers from across the European Union, but also from 12 countries to other parts of the world. And the condition was to be affiliated to a university where you conduct research in the country where you have not lived before. And that's typically when you have EU-funded projects, one of the conditions. So why is that? Obviously, again, from a macro level, this facilitates EU integration. If you have people moving from one place to the next, and initially the European Union was founded for peace-building reasons. So that's for macro level. But then, obviously, for us, the researchers who then come to a different country, it's the fresh eyes, I would say, and also being familiar with different social, cultural, but also different political environments, different economic environments, gives you this aha moment or also some some very, let's say, very clear observations that you can make in the beginning, which is not the case when you have lived in the setting for many, many years.
Because without the family support, usually the mobility is not going to be very successful. So as a company, we've got several different approaches to supporting partners and spouses. I mentioned earlier about the language and intercultural training. We are also a member of the International Dual Career Network, which some of you in the room may be familiar with, which is a network really providing opportunities to connect both with other people in the same situation, other partners and spouses, and also with companies, and look into professional opportunities with some of those companies as well, and understand the local job employment market. Now, so we're a member of that. We also provide some support to partners and spouses in terms of budget, flexible kind of budget that they could use for different purposes to support their integration. For example, following some coaching. And we also have some other sort of innovative ways within our assignee community. In Paris, we have a community that's called Paris Like a Local, where assignees will, organize lunches and also afterwards. And of course, that leads them to greater connections with their colleagues, but can also connect some of the spouses and partners as well. So those are some of the things that we're doing to support, but really very key to us, because obviously mobility and the ability to move people with this kind of organisation is extremely critical.
Yeah, thank you, Susanna. And I agree with you, IDCN is really good, because we had some people who asked if we are going to do Absolutely Talented another time this year. I said no, but you can go to IDCN, because we do the same. Okay, thank you. And Caroline, what do you think of the image that society has of expat partners?
So, of course, as you know, expat partner may be perceived as privileged people, but for me it's totally rejected, because you have decided also to go abroad to follow your partner, so it's a big decision, and also somehow an experience that you challenge yourself to do that. So for me it's totally rejected, and also for me, expat partners finally suffer from discrimination, because you are foreigner, and we are foreigner, for example, in a country, and you are perceived as the partner of an expat first, before seeing your own capability and your own competency and skills. So this is for me the image and what we need to change. And I'm happy to be in a company that look for the right thing, and not as asking some question about individual life, etc.
Thank you. Gill, do you think governments understand the need to promote the work of partners, or are companies leading the way?
That's an interesting question, Martel. I would say that an increasing number of countries understand the importance of dual careers and the need to attract them to the country, because they're obviously highly skilled, and partners are often highly skilled. So that's to say, definitely been a change over the years. We've got around 35 countries that we would regard as best practice in terms of work permits. So we 3 when we started just over 20 years ago. So what best practice countries in terms of partner work permits, they know that attracting inward investment is critical for their economies, and also so that includes attracting dual career couples. many countries around the world today have talent shortages. I mean, I think in the US, they're talking at the moment about having something like 11 million job openings. And talented mobile partners may be able to fill some of those vacancies. So certainly there are many countries that are not aware of that. But I would say that still it's companies that have the better awareness of the issue. Let me just give you one fact that came out of the first part of our survey. This was the part that was carried out by, it was completed by HR and global mobility professionals like Susanna. And 61% of global mobility professionals said that dual careers and partner issues were becoming more important for their companies. So that's the overwhelming majority. Now, when we are making a campaign in a particular country, such as we're doing currently in India, in Singapore, for example, we rely very much on support from companies, who are particularly those that are large employers in a particular country. And we know that they understand the issue of dual careers. And for example, we may ask them to send a letter of support to a government along with other companies, outlining the need for change and so on. So I would say on balance, I would definitely still say that companies have the greater awareness of the issue today.
Thank you. So countries need to work on it. Kerstin, do you have any interesting findings from your research that could help recruiters understand that partners of mobile employees are really unique and talented? What skills do they develop?
Very interesting findings, but which I cannot summarize in that in this given time. I would say let's start with the fact that I've been looking at the life courses of individuals, which means that the very moment in time that you live now in this country is, yes, obviously an important one, but there's also the whole life course perspective. So today you might be the tide mover or the one who is following, but tomorrow you might be the person who is in the position to have a job that makes your family or your family stay in a certain country. So I've realized that in fact there is always a lot of discussion going on and a lot of communication within the couple, for example, where to go next, which gives you communication skills, obviously, within the family, but as well a lot of consciousness, a lot of reflexivity. So one of the findings is that all the people I spoke to are very reflexive about what is life about today, what is the purpose, what is it going to be about tomorrow. And that's a big strength as well. And so, which you can use when being in a job interview or when taking a position in another country. Another important skill is self-regulation. So being able, well, adjustment is one thing, but self-regulation more from a psychological perspective is to learn to be resilient, but also to somehow play a little bit with your identities, with who you are and who you want to be. So it's also part of the narrative, right? Saying that you're an expert partner, or saying that you're a professional, or saying that you are someone who is interculturally savvy and who knows a lot about another context and maybe another educational background, another educational system, which allows you also to add value to this context, which also means that there are non-traditional pathways, right? You can be the wild card, the joker that comes up where nobody really sees on paper that you are the one who is the right person for the position. And for that, obviously, yes, thanks to absolutely talented, you can get out and talk to people and maybe explain a bit more why you could do the job even though you're not qualified for it on paper. And yeah, maybe a last thing, which is So in the narratives, individuals like you and people who move around a lot, there's a lot of oscillation between, it's not about moving all the time, it's also about resting. So and the oscillation between moving and resting, and gives somehow a certain openness as well, and time to reflect, time to rest, and so don't think about the next move, but also think about what's happening here and now, in this moment.
And it's very difficult sometimes, but we have, you are. So, yeah, thank you. Very interesting, Kerstin. Susanna, the main obstacle to the recruitment of expat partners is the fear that they may leave quickly, or they will only be in the company for limited time. What is your opinion as a talent acquisition manager?
Okay, so more and more in companies, we need a flexible workforce. So sometimes we have projects, sometimes we have also employees who take a break, who might be on parental leave. So we do have gaps that need to be filled for temporary periods as well as for longer term. So I think the partner and spouse community is really a community that offers quite a lot of flexibility, and that's quite attractive. And also quite attractive for you because you might be able to do several different things, do a short period with one company, try another one. So you can also build your employability for your next move as well and acquire different skills. And I think what Kerstin was saying is very relevant. Sometimes we're looking for skills that are an addition of lots of different types of experience. And we may want somebody who's got some digital exposure, but is also very familiar with procurement, for example, or marketing, or HR, or finance. So that there are ingredients which can, in a very diverse career path, which could be particularly attractive as well. You don't need to have done a very linear career path to be successful and to be attractive to employers. Yeah, so true. Thank you, Susanna. And for you, Caroline, same question with a different perspective as you find yourself in the situation of having to look for a job abroad. What do you think of this idea that expat partners may leave quickly? Which would be the first obstacle to recruitment?
Yeah, it's an idea. Yes, it's a kind of unconscious bias finally that recruiters have, company have. So, but when I was in China and in the US, finally, compared to Great Resignation or the loyalty of workers, finally you don't have to be afraid of that, because finally, and company also need not to be afraid of that, because contracts for expats are for 2, 3, or 4 years, compared to finally the Great Resignation, that it is sometimes less than 1 year or 19 months. So this is not an issue now. And also, in France, you have, as you said before, we have short-term assignments, what we call the CDD. And this is exactly, I totally agree with you that this is a great opportunity for you as well to accept this short-term assignment, to have a first experience, how it is to have this first experience in France, to be credible, and after to go to another one. And maybe, if you have this question about your period, the period you will stay in France, you can say that the sooner the company will hire you, the longer you will stay as well. Because if you are in France since 1 year already, of course, you will stay less time than if you find a job as soon as you arrive, of course. So this is really critical for you to find a job, of course, quickly, to stay quickly, but this is not, this is something that a company needs to have in mind as well.
Thank you, Caroline. And Gill, as more and more expat partners want to pursue a career, what should companies do to help them?
So by far the most important issue for companies is to recognize that the partner is a critical part of the move and to engage with them before the assignment starts. So this pre-move stage, for me, that is by far the most important ask of companies. Going back to our survey, the vast majority of partners, 80% of them, said that they had had no opportunity to share their concerns with their partner's company. And they felt completely left out of the process, even though obviously they play a key part in the successful assignment. I mean, a failed assignment is extremely expensive, disruptive, etc., etc. So, apart from knowing what their employment rights are in a particular country, partners also would like the kind of support that many companies are offering, such as Schneider that Susanna talked about. For example, information on openings, networking, help with their CV, language training, etc., etc. That they see as extremely important. We had over 1,000 anonymous personal comments from the partners that completed our survey, which are extremely interesting. And these are messages that they would like to pass on to either countries or companies on the Deep Earnest Foundation. They make interesting reading, and if you'd like to have a look at our survey, you'll be able to find that on our website. The other tool that I would mention is what we call our mapping tool, which is on our website. And this shows the current position of many countries around the world and where they stand on work permits for partners. And this is extremely helpful for companies to be able to check out countries that maybe they don't know so much about as far as the work permit for partners. And they can drill down into specific countries and so on. And that mapping tool is also interesting for partners too. So, any of you could go onto our website and have a look. Going back to the point that Kerstin mentioned, this mapping tool also shows the position not only for married partners but also non-married partners and same-sex partners and working-age children. We are building it up. There's still a lot of countries that are not covered, but we have somebody that's just joined the team that will be adding a lot more countries to that in 23. So definitely worth having a look at.
Yes, it's a very good map. I think I invite you to go on the website of Permits Foundation to have a look. It's very good. Kerstin, are there any ways in which expatriations changed you, which you didn't anticipate? How does finding a job for an expat partner help to make an expatriation successful?
I think there are many things that I didn't anticipate. So for my latest stay in Denmark for 4 years, one of it being the pandemic. And obviously there are many things that we don't anticipate in situations of crisis that we're facing. So for me personally, yes, it definitely changed because I had to adapt the plan continuously with regards to work, but also with regards to personal life. And that's for the change. Doesn't work. It doesn't. Yeah, having learned that even during long periods of frustration, there is always sunlight, and there is a back and forth between enthusiastic moments and much more frustrating moments, and that when you look back, it all makes sense. Sometimes you have to wait for some time before making sense of it, but there's also capacity that we learn over time to put all bits and pieces together and to build a narrative and to, well, not only for others but also for ourselves, to make sure that there is some meaning in it. And so what's the purpose of it and what makes the next graduation successful? Obviously, maybe it's the fact that you will find a job and both of you, your partner and you, are going to work for some time in France. But maybe it's not, and maybe it's about just the bits and pieces, the different learnings that you take with you, or a new friend, or maybe a few words of French, or these different things that you accumulate over a life course are already make your subjective career success, I would say, even if you don't have a brilliant position right now.
Yes, and I always told absolutely when you arrive in absolutely French that don't forget the cultural shock, because it's also part of the process, and all expat partners at all these countries live it, feel it. So, but when I moved, nobody told me before. So, but it's important to know that you will have a down, and everybody has it. Susanna, given the opportunity, would you recruit an expat partner? Is there anything you would look for in the application which might make you more likely to choose them?
So I have recruited a spouse or partner.
Very good.
So yes, I would. And I think also just to highlight, I've also had in my team an international assignee in the past. Who had a spouse or a partner, so I kind of indirectly was following what was happening for that person and how it impacted also the person who was in my team. In one company I worked in, I also had someone who left the job to accompany her spouse, and we actually kept the job open for her during that assignment via a kind of a special agreement that was made between the companies about spouses and partners, which we were. So I think that just goes to show that you can encounter those situations all the time as a manager. But really, so we can have those situations a lot of the time. And as managers, I think, we have to be agile. We need to find resources, and particularly with international mobility, obviously it's a topic which is very open to international profiles as well. And when I look for people for my team, there's also a plus if you can empathise with international assignees. So naturally speaking, we're a place in the company that has had that particular opening in terms of international profiles. Otherwise, I think comes back to Karen's point around we do look for hard skills. If I was recruiting someone from my team, I would look at whether that person had any HR background or skills, because you need some kind of foundation, and then I would look at the soft skills. So I would look at things I mentioned before. I can just carry on and use my loud voice. So I'd be looking at the soft skills like adaptability, potential to acquire some hard skills if some of the HR skills were missing, because obviously our part is a very niche part of HR. so I wouldn't necessarily expect them to have had an international mobility experience. But I would look for all of those things, the potential to acquire new skills and obviously to be a good fit with the team. So those are the things that I would look for. But yes, I have hired a staff and very good experience from that as well.
Thank you, Susanna. Very good. The two last questions, because we need to have time for the questions after that. Caroline, what would you say to an employer who hesitates to hire an expat partner?
So I think all organizations are looking to diversify their workforce, and they value diversity and inclusion. So that's why expat partner is part of the solution, I would say. So I will encourage organization and company to try and give you a chance, give expat partner a chance, and judge on this experience, because you can't judge if you didn't try. So this is what I would say to company, and also in your search, it's important to be aware that in France, not all organizations can hire you. It's more global organization. So when I was speaking about Pernod in Paris, this is also because we have our global hub. But of course, typically French company can't hire you, so you need to target also this company, and organization who are global can, of course, consider you as potential talent.
Thank you, Caroline. Gill, for the last question. What advice would you give to companies who want to develop the support they provide to dual career expat couples?
I would say that companies need to be aware of the business impacts of field assignments. 44% of global mobility experts that completed our one survey, they mentioned that assignments have failed or been cut short because of partner issues. And so that's a very serious ethics issue for companies. So 44%, that's nearly half, that's a huge number. As I said previously, many companies still do not take into account the partner's career when they're organising an international assignment. And so I would strongly recommend that they include partners in the pre-move process. Understand if they want to work, and if so, take them into account in terms of which country they may be sent partner to. And if they're not already doing this, I would strongly also recommend that they provide in assignment services, such as we talked about, to support the partner through the process of finding a job and integrating and so on and so forth. I know there's a cost to that, but that will be recouped many times over if the assignment is a success. And we know that the cost of failure is extremely high and on both sides. So I would also recommend that companies read our surveys. We've been carrying out surveys since 2008 to provide evidence to governments of this dual career issue about partner work permits. And there are, as I mentioned, some extremely powerful individual comments, all completely anonymous, that really bring home the personal side of the situation for many people. So I very much recommend that companies have a look at those. And I would also recommend that companies support the efforts of Pernod's Foundation. I know that many companies are reluctant to engage with governments directly on immigration. It can be quite sensitive for them. The benefits of working as part of Pernod's Foundation is that we do this together, and we can achieve much more success by doing this together. Together we can achieve success, and I wish all of you the very, very best.
Thank you, Jill. I just want to add something. Hello? Yeah, because you know, you know that to help expat partners who want to walk, but sometimes we welcome expat partners, they arrive here, they say that they don't want to walk, and they spend time with us, they learn French, and then they decide to walk. Sometimes they don't know at the beginning that they could walk. They imagine it would be too difficult, or you know, it's like the mindset of an expat partner when you move, sometimes it's difficult. And so just don't categorize expat partners before they arrive, because they can change their minds. So it should stay open to walk. Yeah. So thank you, all of you. It was a pleasure to have you with us. I think it's important to be together. Thanks a lot, and thanks. We will make things happen. Thank you.